Hey guys, gonna share my updated Limbo setup. I think I did a Limbo build before, but I'm not sure. But I realized up until now I don't think I've been saying what companion I'm using, so I'll try to make sure to mention that from now on. Um, I use Limbo as a weapons platform with Rift Surge, and I use Silence on him, Banshee Silence, because otherwise he doesn't have a very good way of dealing with Eximus that get near him. Even if he's in the rift, their abilities can still hit him and kill him very quickly. So I like just having that so that any Eximus that gets near me gets shut down. His first ability, Limbo is kind of complicated. I'll try to explain him for people that don't know how he works. He There's two alternate dimensions. He can pass between them just by dodging. He Anything in one dimension can't hit things in the other dimension, and that includes him. So if you dodge into the rift, you're completely safe from anything other than like Eximus abilities or gas poison clouds, stuff like that. But enemy projectiles, melees, stuff like that can't hit you, nor can you hit them. But his first ability will send enemies that you use it on into the opposite dimension from what they're currently in. If they're in normal, it'll send them to the rift. If they're already in the rift, you can hold down the cast button to send them back out. Um, Stasis is what allows him to have so much control and be completely safe as long as you stay in the rift, because it freezes anything that doesn't have overguard completely. They can't move at all. They're completely frozen and they can't fight back. It even freezes projectiles. So as long as you keep that active at all times and you stay in the rift and you have silence up, nothing should be able to even touch you. Then Rift Surge is what probably his most important ability. It puts an effect on enemies that are in the rift that makes it to where the next time they leave the rift, they create a little explosion around them. The explosion sends them and anything else hit by the explosion back into the rift. So it's a way to bring enemies that are currently outside the rift into it without you yourself having to leave the rift and use banish on them. So say you banish one single enemy, then you cast Rift Surge on them, wait until they get next to another enemy, and then you can hold cast banish and they'll explode and they'll pull themselves and everything near them back into the rift. And you can keep doing that as many times as you want to pull more and more enemies into the rift with you, and then none of them can fight back or even damage you because they're all frozen from stasis. And then you kind of have to have this augment if you're going to use Limbo like this. It makes it to where every enemy affected by Rift Surge increases your damage, and that's universal damage. So you could use melee with this if you wanted to. So basically, what you're going to do with a group is send a couple in, make sure it's stasis. Like, as soon as you start a mission, go into the rift. Then cast stasis when you start fighting. Make sure enemies are stasis before you send them into the rift, or they'll get knocked down like that, and it'll be hard to hit headshots and such. Then you just cast Rift Surge, then hold cast Banish, and repeat that over and over until you feel like you've got enough enemies pulled into the rift with you, frozen, waiting to be killed. And then you kill them all, and every enemy you kill in the rift gives you 10 energy back. So it refunds all the energy you just spent, and then you can kind of just repeat. Now, for the question of how do I safely, Limbo is really squishy, how do I safely get those first few enemies into the rift with me? Well, you should already be in the rift when you start a mission, and that's why I use Rolling Guard, because it gives you just enough time to dodge out of the rift, banish a couple enemies, and then dodge back in, and the whole time you're out of the rift, you're invulnerable to damage. So that's why I use this on him. Power strength also directly affects the damage increase percent per enemy on the augment, so you definitely want some of that. Other than that, I just tried to max out duration because you don't want to have to be recasting stasis and such super often. Arcane Steadfast goes a long way on him because you do cast these two abilities quite often. And then multi-augmented is nice, but you could use any weapon buffing arcane if you wanted to. Could use a full arcane resistance if you wanted to avoid environmental hazards or Eximus a bit more. It's really up to you whether you want to use the other arcane for more Warframe things or buffing weapons. Now, I believe that's all for him. I'm using Nautilus to pull enemies together better because I'm using AoE weapons to just kill stuff faster once they're all primed. And then I got a couple different weapons I'm going to show off that I like using with them. The first is Comorex. For those of you that don't know, this weapon creates a viral explosion when you're fully zoomed in with it. But that fire mode destroys your fire rate. So if you put on a minimum semi-rifle cannonade mod, it'll get rid of that fire rate penalty, but you don't want punch through with this weapon because then it will pierce through the enemy and not explode. So it's kind of a mixed bag. You have to get an unranked copy of this mod. Then, to be completely honest, this isn't fully modded out yet, but it's been doing just fine for me. I just built it for gas and status chance and status damage. And I'll show you how it does. So, let's say this was a normal mission. Let me wait for rolling guard to cool down. Actually, let me do this so Nautilus pulls them well. So, say you were coming up to a group in a mission, you dodge out, stasis, banish, dodge back in, and actually make sure to cast stasis before you dodge out. Now, assuming they weren't so close together already, you could Rift Torrent, recast, banish, and keep doing that over and over until you've got as many enemies as you want. Then you just and there's one enemy left. If you're not going to be grouping them, you may want to use something other than gas, but I've found that gas works really well if you're grouping. Another weapon, I honestly may start using this weapon on him, the Proboscis Cernos. I haven't even finished modding this thing. I just built it for gas, and I'll show you how well it does, even now. It really surprised me. Actually, honestly, I'm going to respawn them, because with the Cernos, it pulls them itself, so you don't even need to group them very well. So, stasis. Well, I guess that's just happening unless I unequip Nautilus, so it'll do. But look, that's one arrow. And obviously you don't have to just shoot one arrow. Let me see if I can get like a first few enemies. There we go. Now I can really show. Okay. Spread it around. Here we go. This is a good example. So just shoot a couple into where you want to pull all the enemies into, and you can see it just pulls them itself. And it's doing really good damage for how it is. It isn't very modded yet. think it's because gas damage clouds, I believe they scale with your weapon damage, and he has such a crazy universal damage buff on him that it's just ramping that up like crazy. The last weapon I like to use with him is my Kuvatongor, and I have this thing modded for crit and hunter munitions. It's got a base, like, before any of, any, I think I have a, okay, no, I actually don't have anything increasing the critical chance past 90, but that's been good enough for me, honestly. But I'm using semi-rifle cannonade. Actually, I think I showed this build before, but it's just a critical build with hunter munitions. I'll show it now, how it does. The only thing about this weapon is it can take some effort to ramp it up. I would also recommend putting some casting speed on Limbo. And as you can see, those slash procs, once they get going, they kind of take care of everything on their own. But that's how I like using them. If you play them well, you never even have to leave the Rift. Or at least, you don't have to leave the Rift and ever take damage while you're out of it. As long as you use Rift Surge to pull more enemies in for you. And always keep Silence active, so that Eximuses that get near you can't use abilities. You can kind of just take as much time as you ever want playing the game, because everything's frozen and just at your mercy. That's what I like about him. He's like the ultimate control frame. But I think I'm gonna swap to start using Proboscis Cernos on him, honestly, because it just groups stuff even more. Other than that, melee doesn't really matter. I'm using the Zylok Prime with Eximus advantage, because it's nice for, if I see an Eximus, I can dodge out of the rift, headshot them a couple times with this weapon, and it'll just destroy their overguard. And as soon as their overguard's gone, I can pull them into the rift and freeze them, just like any other enemy. So it's not even for killing them, it's just for breaking their overguard. Then I can treat them as any other enemy. But, hopefully y'all enjoy that setup. Obviously you could put something other than silence on him, but I just like the safety of it. Because that's his one big weakness, is getting destroyed by, like, say, a Toxin Eximus or a Fire Eximus that gets too close to you. But, hope y'all enjoy that. Let me know if you'd change anything.